it is spooky season, aka Halloween. And one particular animal gets a special feature at this time of year. Bats transform little rich kids into superheroes.
I'm Batman.
Bats give Sarah Michelle Gellar 7 seasons of work.
That gym was full of vampire... asbestos.
And bats create the best Sesame Street character.
Let's count the bats and find out. That's one. One bat.
But their credentials go much further than that. Let's grab a cup of coffee, or a pumpkin spice latte if you insist, and dive into the science of bats. I only recently discovered some of the amazing scientific features of bats, and since then I am obsessed and definitely have them in my top 10 of my favorite animals on this planet. But let's start from the beginning and some basic facts about bats. Bats are mammals, like canines, felines, marsupials and primates. But in comparison to all the other ones, they are the only mammal that can fly. They do represent 1,423 of the over 6,400 known species of mammals, which is more than 20%. They are nocturnal, active during the night, and sleep during the day. Their eyes are often only poorly developed, which means they can detect light and color, but they don't see very well. They orient themselves using a technique called echolocation. Bats have a special muscle called the cricothyroid muscle in their larynx to control the orientation of a frequency between 14,000 and 100,000 hertz to send out a call that produces a detectable echo when it bounces off objects in the dark. They compare the outgoing pulse with the incoming pulse, and through this difference, caused by the well-known Doppler effect,
I don't care if anybody gets it. I'm going as the Doppler effect. No, it's not. If I have to, I can demonstrate.
they can detect obstructions and prey at night. And their diet is one of the most wide-ranging in the animal kingdom, including nectar, fruit, pollen, insects, fish, and, fitting with the Halloween theme, blood, which led to the close link to vampires and gave the according bat, Desmodus rotundus, the nickname vampire bat. But the cool science only starts here. There are 2 bat attributes that I want to focus on today. Number 1, their lifespan. Bats live for a seriously and weirdly long time. Mysteriously long, to be honest. Life expectancy is usually closely linked to the body size. For example, the average age of a kangaroo is up to 12 years in the wild and 20 years in captivity. Of a mouse, maybe 2 to 5 years, depending on the type. Humans are a bit of an exception, as we have soap and medicine that helps us extend our lifespan. When adjusted to body size, only 19 species of mammals are longer lived than humans, and 18 of those are bats. The other one is the naked mole rat, by the way. This is 3.5 times the lifespan of a non-flying placental mammal of a similar size. If we lived proportionally as long as those bats, we would be something like 250 years old.
That is the boundary and the price of immortality.
What makes it so mysterious, though, is that their way of life shouldn't lead to such a long life. Flight is, from a metabolic point of view, extremely costly. The metabolic rates of bats can reach up to 3 times the ones of similar-sized exercising mammals. When flying, bats consume up to 1,200 calories per hour. As a comparison, that is double the calorie expenditure of a human running. And this can lead to bats depleting their stored energy, so what they get from food, up to 50% a day. To give you a bit of a visual example of this, a nectarivorous bat living off a high-energy, simple sugar diet can catabolize the food they just ate within 8 minutes of consumption. That sounds almost too stressful to get enough to eat, but how is this possible? One key adaptation of bats in this regard is their alteration of heart rate, which increases 4 to 5 times during flight, up to 1,066 beats per minute. 4 to 5 times. For a human with a resting heart rate of, let's say, 60 beats per minute, that would mean a heart rate of 250 to 300 BPM while running. We'd suffer from a cardiac arrest in no time if that would be the case. So how do bats handle this cardiac stress? They induce something called cyclic bradycardia, so dropping their heart rate to extremely low resting heart rate levels for 5 to 7 minutes several times per hour when they are resting. This not only releases the stress on their heart, but also conserves up to 10% of their energy, meaning they don't end up starving to death. Incredible! Coming back to their mysteriously long life though, these bats also show no signs of aging. The researchers tracking and sampling bats over long periods of time looked at their telomeres. Telomeres are the little caps on the end of your chromosomes that protect your DNA from degrading. And that's an important marker of age, as our telomeres get shorter as we age. But in bats, the telomeres didn't shorten with age. The complete mystery isn't solved yet, but the telomeres definitely play a big part in it. Number 2, their immune system. Apart from Batman and vampires, bats are probably most well known for carrying a variety of nasty infectious diseases. Most famously, given the past few years, from transmitting coronavirus to humans. But they carry so many viruses, SARS, MERS, Ebola, rabies, that can cause deadly epidemics and pandemics in humans. But the bats, they are fine. They don't show symptoms, they don't get sick, they clear these viruses out of their system. Are bats simply invincible? Not quite. They don't show the same invincibility when it comes to bacteria and fungi, thinking of the white nose syndrome and the like. So what is so special about bats and viral infections then? The key is the way their immune system works, especially in comparison to ours. For all mammals, there is a sweet spot when it comes to immune responses. If you get infected with a virus, you want your immune system to attack and clear the virus to keep you healthy. But at the same time, you kind of want to keep a lid on that immune response and not go all out, because that can actually damage some healthy cells in your body and can lead to some serious health issues, so much so that you could die from it. Let's take COVID as our prime virus example. The virus itself is extremely infectious, but what often kills people is an extreme immune response, inflammation. I talked about a similar reaction in my video about mosquitoes. Bats are special because they have a way of keeping their immune system in check. But how? To understand this, we have to take a quick look on how our body's immune response works. So, in our body, there are proteins called inflammasome sensors, and they float around and detect danger, like viruses, bacteria, or cell damage. When they sense such a problem, they, together with some other proteins, form an inflammasome. This inflammasome can now deal with the danger, say a virus, directly, or it can recruit other members of the immune systems like white blood cells and antibodies and the like to help out. These inflammasomes actually play a major role in age-related diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, diabetes and heart disease. Now, because bats don't show signs of aging and age-related diseases, researchers wondered if their inflammasomes were somehow different to ours. And they found that bats make a protein that suppresses the inflammasomes. They tested their hypothesis by genetically modifying mice to make this protein and then exposing them to different varieties of diseases and irritants and looking at their immune response. And it turns out that those genetically modified mice reacted more like bats and didn't have as much of an inflammation response as they usually would. Now, this discovery is huge because it means the next step would be to work on a human drug version so we can get this protein too to suppress extreme immune responses. These bats are kind of redeeming themselves. First, they give us diseases, then they help us cure them. Why bats? If you are anything like me, you might by now end up with the question, why bats? Valid point. There are actually a lot of theories out there and a lot of debate on this, but the best guess, or the one I believe most likely to be true, comes back to the fact that they are the only mammals who can fly. Remember how hard flying is on their system? Their heart rate is crazy high, their metabolism goes haywire. They are literally operating in the extremes. And being in extreme state is usually pretty damaging. For tools, for machines, for living beings. In particular, their cells. It can lead to DNA damage, inflammation, and a lot of other problems. So to safely be able to fly, bats had to evolve a whole array of countermeasures to protect them. And one adaptation is a pretty decent immune system. There are flaws to this theory, like the obvious ones, that birds can fly but don't show these adaptations. But as I said, there's a lot of debate going on. Either way, I hope I got you on Team Bats. And if you're not convinced by now, then just think about how sleeping bats upside down look like a goth disco. I'll leave you with that and see you in my next video. Stay sciencey.